Welcome to the True P&L Deep Dive. Before we start, a quick disclaimer. This analysis is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always do your own research. Now let's get into the numbers.
All right, so today we are diving deep into PGP Glass Ceylon. The ticker is GLAS, and we're looking at their H1 FY26 report.
Right, and our mission today is pretty specific. We're not just here to read you the headlines from the press release.
No, absolutely not. We're here to hunt for what we call the true P&L. We're going to pressure test these numbers.
Because the headlines, they look fantastic.
Yeah.
Over 30% profit growth, a bulletproof balance sheet, amazing cash flow.
Exactly. And our job is to figure out if the foundation supporting all of that is, solid granite or maybe something a little closer to quicksand.
That scrutiny is so important. When you see a mature industrial company like this posting numbers that good, your analyst alarm bells have to start ringing.
You have to ask the question, is this real, sustainable, operational excellence, or is it some kind of one-off accounting trick?
And that's what we're here to find out. Okay, so let's start with the thing that immediately jumps off the page. The part that, for any seasoned analyst, just doesn't quite add up at first glance.
We call it the great disconnect. It's the hook.
It really is. So let's look at the top line first, the revenue. PGP Glass brought in 9.09 billion rupees.
Which is growth. It's up 5.4% year over year.
Right, but let's be honest, 5.4% is fine. It's solid. But in an inflationary environment, that's barely keeping your head above water.
It's not spectacular. It doesn't scream high growth.
Not at all. But then you scroll down the income statement, you follow that very modest growth down to the bottom line.
And you just hit a wall of surging performance. Net profit absolutely ballooned.
It grew 29.6% to 1.98 billion rupees.
So let's just pause on that. Revenue up 5%, profit up almost 30%.
The numbers are screaming at you. The profit grew nearly 6 times faster than the sales.
And that right there is the whole story in a nutshell. It tells you immediately that this isn't about volume growth. They didn't just sell 6 times more bottles.
No, if you were just volume, you'd need to see revenue up in the 25–30% range to match. Since we don't, it signals something much more profound is happening internally.
It's all about margin expansion. It has to be. And that's driven by some serious operating leverage.
Let's maybe unpack that term, operating leverage, for a second. Think about a glass manufacturer. They have these huge, massive furnaces.
Which are a gigantic fixed cost.
Exactly. The energy to run them, the staff, the maintenance.
Yeah.
You pay for all of that, whether the furnace is running at 70% capacity or 95%.
So once you sell enough glass to cover all those fixed costs?
Every single bottle you sell after that point is almost pure profit. The only extra costs are the raw materials, a bit more energy.
Yeah.
The variable costs are tiny in comparison.
Right. So that little 5.4% bump in revenue, that little bit of extra sales on top, it falls straight to the bottom line. And that's why you see profit growth just dwarf the revenue growth.
But that only works if they've kept a lid on those variable costs, which takes us right to the next logical step. We need to look at their operational health.
So we're moving from the conclusion it must be high leverage to finding the actual evidence in the numbers.
And the core question is, where did this efficiency come from? Did they just jack up prices on their customers, or did they become masters of cost control?
And the data points overwhelmingly to the latter. Surgical cost management.
This is where we look at the cost of sales. This is the pulse of the factory floor.
It's the key metric.
And here's the smoking gun. Despite generating 5.4% more revenue, which means they made and shipped more physical product,
Okay.
their cost of sales actually fell. It went down by 0.6% year over year.
Wait, hold on. Let me just process that. They produced more, but their cost to produce it went down.
Exactly. More output, less cost. That's an incredibly rare combination in any manufacturing business. It's almost counterintuitive.
It is exceptionally rare. And this is where we need to apply a bit of professional skepticism, right? Is this a permanent structural change, or is it just cyclical?
That's a great challenge. What are the possibilities?
Well, if it's cyclical, it could just mean they got lucky. Maybe the price of natural gas or soda ash or one of their key inputs just plummeted for a few months.
So they got a temporary tailwind, a lucky procurement cycle.
Right. But if it's structural, that's a whole different story. That's a true operational victory.
Structural success would mean things like improved manufacturing yields. So less waste, more good bottles from every batch of raw material.
Or maybe they optimized the furnace so intensely that the energy cost per unit dropped, things they can repeat.
Given the nature of glass making, It feels like there have to be some structural improvements in there, but we have to acknowledge that favorable input costs are probably helping.
Whatever the mix, the result is undeniable, and you see it cascade right through the margins. This is the proof.
Let's start with the gross margin. It expanded by a staggering 400 basis points.
400 basis points. It went from 29.2% to an elite 33.2%.
And let's put that in real terms. That means for every 100 rupees of product they sold this year, they kept 4 extra rupees as gross profit compared to last year.
In an industrial business, 400 basis points is not just noise. That is a massive, meaningful shift in your cost structure.
And because that gain happened so high up on the income statement and their other operating costs didn't explode, that efficiency just flowed straight down.
That's the textbook definition of efficiency flow-through. The operating margin followed right along, jumping from 22.0% to 26.2%.
And then the final number, the net margin. The piece of every single rupee of revenue they actually get to keep. That soared from 17.7% to a very, very impressive 21.8%.
So this whole story really confirms our first big lesson for investors here.
Which is that revenue growth isn't everything. In fact, sometimes it's secondary.
Exactly. PGP's profit grew 6 times faster than its sales because they have a hyper-efficient operational machine. These are high-quality earnings.
High quality because they're being earned through the core business making and selling glass, not through some, financial engineering or one-off asset sales.
The machine is just running at peak performance.
Okay, so we've validated the source of the profit. It's real operational improvement. But now we have to subject it to the ultimate stress test.
Cash flow.
Cash flow. This is where we separate the paper profits from the real, hard, spendable cash in the bank.
This is the moment of truth for any analysis. We have to aggressively compare that reported net profit, the Rs, 1.98 billion against the operating cash flow.
And here, the numbers don't just confirm the strength, they amplify it.
Let's see it.
The net profit was 1.98 billion rupees. But the cash they generated from their day-to-day operations, 3.15 billion rupees.
Wow. Okay, so the cash generated was, what, more than 50% higher than the stated profit?
That is the definitive green flag. Usually we worry when profit is high, but the cash flow is lagging. That suggests all sorts of problems.
Right. It could mean they're booking revenue too aggressively, or their customers aren't paying, or inventory is piling up.
But when cash flow is this much higher than profit, it's irrefutable proof of exceptional earnings quality.
We can quantify this with a great metric, the cash conversion ratio, or CCR.
Let's do it. You just take operating cash flow and divide it by net profit. For GLAS, that ratio is a phenomenal 1.59x.
And this is our lesson 2 for you. A CCR over 1.0 is great. It proves the profits aren't just paper.
But 1.59x is, that's a whole different league.
It is. It means for every single rupee of profit that the accountant recorded on the income statement, an actual 1 rupee and 59 cents landed in the company's bloke account.
Let's just think about the opposite for a second. If they had a CCR of, say, 0.7x.
That would be a huge red flag.
It would mean for every rupee of profit, only 70 cents was actually collected. The other 30 cents would be stuck somewhere. Stuck in receivables that might go bad or inventory that's not selling.
Exactly. A low CCR signals danger. GLAS is showing the complete opposite. This 1.59x isn't just about good accounting, it's a sign of a massive competitive advantage.
Okay, so now we have to ask why. Why was the operating cash flow so incredibly high? It wasn't just the profit.
A huge chunk of it came from a release of cash from working capital. Management has clearly been tightening the screws.
And the biggest driver here was receivables. They collected their money much, much faster.
The number is huge. They reduced their accounts receivables by a monumental 1 billion rupees. It dropped from 3.93 billion down to 2.92 billion.
In just 6 months. Think about the operational effort that takes. These are big B2B customers. They want long credit terms.
You don't just call them up and ask for 1 billion rupees faster. This means they either renegotiated terms or their collection process is just brutally efficient now.
And that 1 billion rupees that was basically an IOU from customers is now liquid cash in the bank.
It added 979 million directly to their operating cash flow. It's a self-funding mechanism. They don't need to take out working capital loans when they can do this.
We also saw a bit of tightening on the inventory side. That added another 91 million to the cash flow.
It's a smaller number, but it reinforces the same theme. Capital is not being left idle anywhere in the system.
Okay, so all of this exceptional cash generation leads us to the holy grail, free cash flow.
Right, so we take that 3.15 billion in operating cash flow and we subtract their capital expenditure, or CapEx.
And their CapEx was remarkably low, only 203 million rupees.
So that leaves PGP Glass with a staggering 2.95 billion rupees in free cash flow in just 6 months.
That CapEx number is really interesting on its own. 203 million, that's only 2.2% of their revenue.
Which tells you a lot about the state of their assets. Their property, plant, and equipment is stable at around 5.25 billion.
It suggests they have a very mature asset base. The factory, the furnaces, they're well-maintained, running efficiently, and not in need of huge immediate replacement spending.
Exactly. This low need for reinvestment means almost all of that operating cash turns into pure free cash flow. It's available for shareholders for growth, whatever they want. It's the hallmark of a cash machine.
So that brings us to the balance sheet. We've seen the income statement is strong, the cash flow is even stronger. Now let's check the foundation.
This is where you look for the hidden risks, the ticking time bombs.
But with PGP Glass,
It's cool.
it's the opposite. We didn't find hidden risks. We found astonishing hidden strengths. This is a true fortress balance sheet.
And the whole story starts and ends with their debt, or more accurately, the complete lack of it.
We're looking at essentially zero structural debt. Long-term debt is nil. Nothing.
The only thing that even resembles debt is a tiny bank overdraft of 23.5 million rupees.
Which, on 9 billion of revenue in half a year, it's mathematically insignificant. It's a rounding error.
And just to be absolutely sure, we ran the interest coverage ratio. How many times can they cover their interest payments with their operating profit?
The number is almost comical. It's 1,790 times.
1,790.
So the risk of financial distress from debt it's non-existent.
It is. But this also raises a really important point for an advanced investor, doesn't it? It's the paradox of being too safe.
Right. Why are they so averse to debt? I mean, a little bit of leverage is a good thing. Interest is tax deductible. You can boost your returns on equity.
By using zero debt, they are willingly giving up those tax shields. It's an opportunity cost. It's a strategic choice we have to question. Is it an ultra-conservative culture, or do they see some future risk we don't?
It's something to monitor. For now, though, it's maximum safety. Let's look at their liquidity beyond just debt.
Their ability to cover short-term bills.
Their total assets are about 16 billion rupees. But the key is that their current assets, the liquid stuff, are over 10 billion of that. They are very liquid heavy.
The ratios just confirm it. The current ratio is a jaw-dropping 4.59.
A safe number is usually considered to be above 2. So 4.59 is ultra-liquid. They have almost 5 rupees of liquid assets for every 1 rupee of short-term bills.
And if we apply an even stricter test, the quick ratio, where you take out inventory.
Because inventory can be hard to sell quickly.
Exactly. Even without selling a single item from their warehouse, their quick ratio is 2.93. They can cover all their liabilities almost 3 times over with just cash and receivables.
They are not living paycheck to paycheck. They have an incredible cushion against any kind of shock.
Okay, so the balance sheet is safe. But are the assets working hard, or are they lazy?
That's the final check. And the return metrics prove they're working incredibly hard. Their annualized return on equity, the ROE, is 30.9%.
Which is an absolutely elite figure, and what's amazing is they're achieving that without any financial leverage from debt. Most companies chasing a 30% ROE are loaded up with debt to juice the numbers.
This is almost purely operational return, and the return on assets at 24.5% confirms that the assets they do have are being used with incredible efficiency.
So the balance sheet isn't just safe, it's an optimally engineered machine for high returns.
Which brings us to our final and maybe most important section, the elephant in the room.
We've established this incredible picture, operationally brilliant, amazing cash flow, zero debt, ultra liquid, but that very strength creates a new problem.
A good problem to have, but a problem nonetheless. This is lesson 3, managing excess cash.
The balance sheet is so safe, it's actually starting to become a drag on future returns. We're talking about the massive and growing cash pile.
The cash reserves have surged to 3.84 billion rupees.
And to put that number in perspective, that represents a full 30% of the company's entire equity.
1/3 of the company's value is just sitting in a bank account, earning very little.
In capital allocation terms, that is lazy capital. It's not being put to work in the high-return manufacturing business that shareholders invested in.
And what makes this even more dramatic is the context. They just paid out a huge dividend, 2.1 billion rupees.
A very substantial return of capital to shareholders.
And yet, despite that massive cash outflow, their cash balance still went up by nearly 1 billion rupees.
That just perfectly illustrates the power of their cash generation. They can't even give it away fast enough.
It proves they've solved the operational problem. Now they have a capital allocation problem. And what management decides to do next is the single most critical factor for the stock going forward.
Absolutely. This is what separates the good companies from the truly great ones. So what are their options? There are really only three main paths for that 3.84 billion.
Option 1, reinvest it back into the business. Get aggressive. A big furnace rebuild. A major capacity expansion to go after more sales.
The risk there is timing. Their revenue is only growing at 5%. If you spend billions on a new plant and the demand isn't there, you've just turned safe cash into a non-performing asset.
Big risk, but if they get it right, it's the best path for long-term growth. Okay, option 2.
Just give it back, a super dividend, or an aggressive share buyback.
This signals that management accepts they're in a mature phase. They're saying, we don't have enough high-return internal projects, so here, you, the owners, can have the cash back.
A big buyback would also instantly boost their earnings per share and make their already elite ROE even higher.
Okay, and option 3.
Go shopping, mergers and acquisitions. With that cash and no debt, they could easily buy a competitor or a supplier or move into a new market.
M&A is always the highest risk, though. Integrating two industrial companies is notoriously difficult.
The highest risk, but also the potential for the biggest, fastest transformation. It would require management to become expert deal makers, not just expert operators.
So the pressure is building. They can't just let 30% of their equity sit there passively forever. They have to make a choice.
And that choice will determine the future for shareholders.
All right, let's bring it all together. A synthesis of our hunt for the true P&L of PGP Glass. Let's recap those 3 big lessons for investors.
Lesson 1. Look beyond the top line. Revenue growth is not the whole story. PGP's profit grew 6 times faster than sales because of margin expansion. You have to dissect the operational efficiency.
Lesson 2. The earnings quality check is non-negotiable. Always test accounting profit against real cash flow. PGP's cash conversion ratio of 1.59x is your gold standard. If you ever see that number dip below 1.0, your warning light should be flashing.
And lesson 3. In mature, successful companies, your focus has to shift to capital allocation. The fortress balance sheet is great, but that 3.84 billion in idle cash is a ticking clock. Your analysis now is all about predicting and judging management's next move with that capital.
So our final verdict is pretty clear. PGP Glass is a financial machine. Generational operational excellence, 0 debt, and just unmatched cash generation. The earnings are real. They've solved the operational problem.
Now they have to solve the strategic one. They've built up all this fuel. Now they need to decide how to burn it, reinvest, return, or acquire.
And that leaves us with a final provocative thought for you to take away and think about. Given this company has low capex needs and a mature infrastructure, they're posting an elite annualized ROE of 30.9% on a debt-free balance sheet.
The question is this: how long can any management team sustain that level of elite return when 1/3 of their equity is idle cash?
They can't. Something has to give. They either have to invest that cash to grow the revenue base or aggressively return it to shareholders. This tension between safety and growth is the valuation tightrope that PGP management has to walk right now.
A phenomenal breakdown. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
And remember, this analysis is for educational purposes only and does not constitute financial advice. Always do your own research. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.